I got to mute my.
Are you gonna make? Maybe I should hang up the phone. Let's see. That's me. Can't really hear anything.
I can hear now. How's it going for everybody?
I heard that. I'm coming through the phone, so I guess I know someone can hear me. I'm gonna hang up the phone.
You're coming through very clear on the phone.
Okay, now I'm on the computer. Is that as clear as the phone?
Yeah, it's good. It sounds good.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
And I do deeply, deeply apologize for being late.
It's 4:20. Let's see how far we get. If we need another one, can we schedule another one?
Yes, we could.
Okay, let's do that. So if I want to share my screen.
I can send it over to you now.
Okay.
What are you listed as?
Oh,
Are you?
I don't think I put my name in there.
You may be
here we go,
waiting.
settings.
You may be waiting for name. Let me click over here and see if this works for you.
Share your screen. I need a small extension, so let me add this extension. Share my screen. Can you all see me? Or can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, okay, let's do this. Okay. I thought I would put this slide deck up on a bit.ly link, my favorite shortener, at like AMTA 2018-0201. Hopefully that's not taken. Please don't go take that right now because I need it when I upload this. We're talking randomized assessment. I'm in Pasco High School in Pasco, Washington. That's the eastern side of the mountains, and we're close to LIGO, so it's a lot of fun here. I worked at Microsoft on the other side of the mountains as a software test engineer from 1998 to 2011. I got my master's in ed from Seattle Pacific. I can teach in the state of Washington math or science, particularly physics. I went to the workshop in Wheaton, Warrenville, 2015. I've been teaching physics. I had been teaching physics for a couple of years at that point, heard about modeling and wanted to check it out. My wife is from Wheaton. Winfield, actually. Let me tell you a little about the context because it drives the reason why, one of the reasons why I think randomized assessments are key. We're Pasco High School, one of two high schools in our district. We're 912 public, 78% Hispanic, 70% free and reduced. The latest stats I had might be a little different from that, but okay. I teach physics, 2 classes, advanced physics, and AP physics. I use modeling in the advanced and the regular physics. And advanced to me just means we spend a little more time maybe on technology tools that students might need, or maybe a few demos or 2 that the other classes don't need, or maybe a focus on kids that might like to take physics in the future. So I use the curriculum version 3.1 of physics, modeling, mechanics from the AMTA, kind of the standard format. And then the one twist is that we're using standards-based grading. So all of my assessments, which are the quizzes, of course, and the test at the end of the units, assume that students can do what they've been given, but ask them to go a little bit further to get the A. And also, students here can retake their assessments as many times as they need. That's kind of I consider it a hallmark of standards-based grading, because it's about retrying and relearning to try and get to that proficiency level. All right. Here's my hypothesis that I have. If you give identical assessments to all students, it's just too tempting, right? They want to copy their answers mindlessly in parentheses from their neighbors. And so I thought that's just not going to work. And here's why. I don't like being the cop of this escalating battle against the paper assessment of, they take pictures and post it on Snapchat, and it's just the answer, which just seems sad. And maybe some hastily written steps to the problem, which are also kind of copied. So I didn't like that. I had to keep electronic devices somewhere else, and I had to track down the cheaters and then take steps against them. I'd much rather create an environment that helps them teach each other, maybe during the exam. So that was the first big hurdle, I guess, or big kind of mind-blowing thing, is that they could maybe talk during the exam and yet not be just giving each other answers. They could be teaching each other or telling each other some concepts. So I'm pretty sensitive to that idea that students telling other students about content does seem to be a different way to get learning to happen than just the teacher telling them. So here's the problem. As you said, I think static paper assessments are a losing battle. And we see this too in the AP or any other standardized test. They're rigorously controlled. They don't release copies of certain parts of their test, just to look at AP Physics, for example. And that's just a shame. So I really want to be able to teach maybe broader topics. And when I look at that paper assessment, it just looks like a dead fish to me now. Like, questions are all the same every time. So I don't think I'm ever going back, which is crazy, but I just can't see it happening. So when I say collaborative too, the collaboration that can happen during an assessment is not necessarily that they can all get the same product. In other words, like collaborative, like we're all building a bridge out of popsicle sticks. No, I'm saying they all have to get their test done, and some have different questions than the others, and so they might talk to each other. So it's kind of a tweak on that definition. Here's some innovations we know about from randomized stuff. So Mastering Physics from Pearson has this idea that you really can't have kids do stuff online or outside of maybe a classroom environment unless you make it different for every student. So that makes sense. WebAssign I started doing, and that's from Cengage National Graphic Learning. Just as a full disclosure, I do a little bit of consulting work for them. I'm not pushing them at all, but they definitely have amazing, it was started by a physics teacher, WebAssign, and then bought by Cengage, but the point is they definitely have some serious tools for how to randomize questions. Lucia and I have been talking a little bit because we met on the AMTA listserv. She's been getting Moodle to do some randomized questions, which I think is great. But I haven't really seen Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, some of those classic online assessment tools, adopt a way to just put a random number in a question and pass that random number through to the potential answers and then actually find the answer that's going to be right. I mean, that's there, but it's just not quite randomized capable yet. And I know because I keep pushing on Microsoft people that I know still just to do that, but it's just not happening. Google Forms, I haven't looked into scripting. I bet it can be done, but I'm not good enough at that yet. Okay, so here's some quick. I'm skipping over a lot of pedagogical stuff, theory, and I don't have a double-blind test on whether randomized actually teaches kids better. I don't have, I guess you can't do double-blind. At least you could start with control, but I could do that some year, give students all the same tests. But it just doesn't make me get excited about coming in that day if I know some kids are going to be doing randomized and some kids aren't. So, okay, here's how I win, though. I think students can learn even during assessment, because the pressure is on and they have to produce a product within limited time. But even if I let them take it home, the idea is retakes or makeups or take home are easy in the sense that if I know every kid has a different exam, they really couldn't copy a straight answer from somebody. Now, if they copy down a method and plugged in the right numbers, and I do see not crazy errors, but the errors you'd expect where students have their numbers in their problem and they put in numbers from some other problem. Maybe it was a prototype test. I give out sample tests before the test. That's just one version to everybody and let them kind of study from that. But sometimes they put that number in. So I just think they're not being careful. And using those methods and applying equations and things it's not about copying down an answer. All right, so anyway, the cons, I haven't really figured out if student A knows the scenarios that are on another test. You see what I'm saying? If they got a totally separate version, then I don't really know if student A knows that other version because they aren't all doing the same version. And if we assess narrow standards, then can we be sure that if I put in related scenarios that they know the related scenarios? There's an initial cost to get these up and going, and there's answer keys that you have to collate, and it's non-trivial grading time. I don't think as I get good at it, it takes much more time if your answer keys are relatively detailed. And then if I'm standing in front of a student that I know needs to do a certain scenario that's on the test, like they have problems with constant velocity, they just can't get it. They confuse it with constant position or constant acceleration. I don't really know how to differentiate. In other words, it's not easy for me to say, oh, this is the test with the version with the question on it that's going to help you prove that you know that. It's tricky. Here's the technology pieces that I'm using. Excel, Microsoft Excel, and they're all limited, these options, because it would be nice to generate motion maps or kind of pictures or diagrams on the fly. What I wind up doing for a lot of my tests is that I take from the AMTA curriculum is just blocking out the static numbers and then putting in random numbers. So that's the Adobe PDF method, is I just have to put in different numbers or angles and then hope kids can make sense of it. So here's the steps for creating a randomized PDF. And there's also a YouTube video with another link to one of the assessments from the modeling physics curriculum that I randomized using a method where I kind of just inserted random numbers. So here's how it works. I get that document into a PDF by, well, first I convert it to a form. A form is a particular animal that's a PDF where you can put script behind it. And I write questions on the quiz with fields then for each number. In the JavaScript that runs behind the randomized button, I have a random number generator that puts numbers in those fields. And once I know those numbers, I also, so say the quiz is 2 pages, the third and fourth page of the quiz is a solution that's also generated at the same time. So I can generate answer keys. I mean, ideally, the best practice is to generate an answer key at the same time as your questions, just so you never have to kind of really work through all those 38 different questions. What grading comes? Go ahead. Okay. So what grading gets difficult, I mean, the difficult part of grading is matching up the version they have with the answer key that I have. But once that's there, then I can just cruise through it. Of course, you're grading a test with all the same questions. They need to have all the same answers. The trick comes when you're trying to give partial credit or figure out what the kid did wrong. So maybe I'm disincented from trying to read through all that they've written. But I do feel more confident saying, no, that's just a wrong answer, but you have your whole version, and I'll give it a whole nother version. Just try again, right? Or take some feedback and try again. So a lot of people took a look at my free fall on planet Newtonia. So this is the video where I basically walked through how I randomized that. It's not an assessment, but it's an activity. And the idea is you can put dots down at different spacings. You can give kids the real numbers between those so they don't have to use a ruler and do that whole thing. But the point is they could all be on a different planet. They could all be basically applying the same method to different data. So if you were to do that for any Excel kind of based randomized assessment, I first think about, and this is the fun part, we're all geeks in various ways and different things turn us on about what we do. But the point is, if I can enumerate the different versions of the question, list those versions in a table, use the columns of the table for parameters or setups for that question, and use a random number to pick those. So not only am I picking the scenarios in rows, but in columns, I'm also randomizing the variables that are in that kind of scenario. So that just seems like a lot of fun too, and it's a challenge, right, to think about what are the different flavors that students should see or be able to see. So then I format the quiz assessment test is produced in Excel in page view. I changed the column widths and row widths to make it kind of look like graph paper, so it's a little comforting, but also gives me more granular placement on the page. Then every time I press F9 in Excel recalculate, I basically get another version. And if you have, we all know how to compute permutations, so if there's 6 versions of question 1 and 3 of version 2, pretty soon nobody's ever going to get the same version, no matter, I suppose I could teach in a finite number of years and we'd figure out what they were doing. So these are the steps I have to do. So just to be kind of full disclosure, I create a randomizing master assessment in Excel. Those were the previous slides. And remember that you need to have an answer key. Every assessment has a serial number or some sort of unique ID on it, so I can see who saw which question or who saw which test. And I don't let students kind of swap around their tests. I gave you that one, so I try not to let them do that. Right now, I can do one set in one period and another identical set in the other period. They haven't really figured that out, but we're in this escalating battle, right? They'll figure that out, and pretty soon they'll be finding the kid that has their same version, or once they figure out how to read the version numbers. They haven't really figured that out yet, which I think is kind of interesting. Okay, so then I print the master. I combine, so you print each version of the randomized assessment to PDF. I combine those PDFs into one master file, and I print that on my copier. Copier printer, so double pages, 3-hole punches, and staples. And then I have to separate the answer keys. Actually, it won't staple for me because it's one full, you know what I'm saying? One full document with a lot of different versions. It would just staple the whole thing. So yeah, there's some collating to do, and it's not trivial. I need to come in and run my copies when nobody's around or get it done because it's tricky. So I wanted to just show some examples. I don't want to go through Free Fall on Planet Newtonia because I think that one's available to you, but I did just put out on the forum some things, the AMTA eWeb Life forum, that you can take a look at. And I did try to put stuff on GitHub about a year ago, and that got a lot of traction with people, but it's just too complicated for me to do version control or something up on GitHub. So I'd rather kind of upload my latest, greatest stuff. So what I can, let me commit myself to getting up my Unit 1 to 1 kind of post in the physics, and then my Unit 2 randomized stuff, and then my Unit 3, and then as I move along. So I jumped from Unit 3 to Unit 9 this year. I'm kind of a little bit out of sequence with some people, but maybe I'm ahead based on other things people are doing. Let me just show you real quick. This is an Excel spreadsheet based assessment, and this is not in the curriculum. So let me just introduce my idea here. Mr. W takes a drive on Main Street and measures his velocity versus time. So velocity versus time. And since we're only doing, constant acceleration, it's just at certain times he either had zero acceleration over the next segment, negative acceleration, or positive acceleration, and of course that put him at a different velocity after a certain amount of time. So this is kind of how my assessments look, right? So standard header, some graph, and if I press F9, my graph changes. And so I know that some of these are not very equitable. Some seem a little more, oh wow, very simple, right? But I can see that and maybe give that to the kid that I need to differentiate and say, hey, can you just do this one? Whereas some of these are all negative velocity, some of these are all positive. So what I'm doing in this is asking the same questions to a different set of data. So here are the set of questions. When was Mr. W not moving? When did he have zero velocity? When did he have zero acceleration? This is posted to the forum too, so if you want to look at this. I'm not calling this draft right now. I mean, I need to do some more testing because it gets a little tricky, some of these questions later on. So right on all the times Mr. W had zero acceleration, that's pretty easy. Right time all the time, so it's moving at constant speed. So these are the same question, right? Just to see if they can get that. What does positive versus negative mean? And was I moving in one direction? So that's kind of very similar to the other question. Other direction, was Mr. W speeding up? Was Mr. W slowing down? Positive acceleration. So those are two of the same questions. So the assessment could be way shorter if I didn't go all kind of, do they just understand the terminology piece? But the point is, and then my bonus questions, what was the total displacement? So can they do the area, and what was the average speed? So can they figure out the area over that total time? So here's my answer key. So it looks a little clunky because my points of zero velocity were 0, 280, and there were no intervals of zero velocity. So that question looks like it's calculated correct. Then there's some questions that I just say, hey, it's the same as the question before. And so this is where the art comes in. How do you, I don't know how to collapse some of these, or my program doesn't collapse the part where I had zero acceleration. So 160 to 240, that's here. 390 to 430. Anyway, so this is something you can look at just to get a flavor. The magic is not happening in this one tab of the spreadsheet. The magic is happening on this tab, where I'm basically setting up some random intervals of time and then setting up for the scenario, which is either does velocity increase, decrease, stay the same, and those are kind of it, right? But I'm also dialing in some weighting around, some weighting, W-E-I-G-H-T-I-N-G, some weighting of the various scenarios. So that's just kind of one direction that I'm going. That's what I'm talking about. This is under development. I'm calling that under development. And then if people want to see some things that I've done in chemistry, I put some stuff up on Teachers Pay Teachers. But if you send me an email, of course, I'll send you a copy. The point is Lewis dot notation. So chemistry is amazing, right? Because you have this database, I call it, of elements. And you can ask very similar questions about all of them. Some questions are better for some elements than others, of course, but just getting students familiar with that and then knowing that they're not just looking up the same boron question, right? And they actually have to kind of figure it out. So there was isotope notation, basic periodic table stuff. And so yeah, that was my presentation. It's 4:45, I think. So I could show you some other stuff that I've made, or we could chat a little bit about what your needs are, or where you think this, or why you thought this was an interesting topic, or if it hit the mark or not. So I'm going to get my window up here for chat just to see, or maybe I should put it over on the other side. Let me do that so it's not distracting. Okay. Ariel says I could give the same test to everyone, but label it differently with different test formats. Yeah, so, it's a psychological battle with the kids, the students we teach. It's also kind of because they get psyched out. When I tell them there's a big test for the end of the unit, you could see them kind of freeze up. And I say, oh, wait, I'll show you a version of the test. Your version will be very, very similar. And here's the question that nags at me sometimes. Am I teaching physics, or am I just teaching engineers? Because when you think about engineering as that application of physics to, like, here's an equation, make it happen, get it to work. Or am I teaching them to be creative? And I don't know. I think sometimes by throwing at them different flavors of a question, I think it's getting interesting, but maybe not. So here's how I structure my life. Let me just show you the Unit 2 test. I'm pretty proud of the unit tests, so let me just throw them up here so you can see it. If you've never seen any of my stuff, so if you didn't get on the GitHub a while back, then, all right, so let's see, Unit 2 test. Date modified. Unit 2 test randomizer. That's December. That would be December. That's good. Okay, so here's my Unit 2 test. So you're all pretty familiar with the Unit 2 test, I assume. So it has position versus time, velocity versus time, and motion maps. So I can't generate the answer key for motion maps in Excel yet. I mean, I need a way to draw things, or I need to program. And I didn't want to make these macro intensive. But the students will start off with questions, and as I press F9, these are some basic scenarios. And you see the lines changing, right? So let me zoom in here. You see the lines changing on this assessment for the position versus time graph, but I also am changing the text here. So if the object starts at a positive x position, object starts at a greater positive or 0 or negative. So all of those are keyed off of this one ID for the test. And then the same, I think for the second page, I had limited the span of where things, or what kind of options I was going to try. Like this, maybe they all started negative or something on this one. This is the graph that you all know. And this one, I tell you what, it's just a scaling trick because I can't draw that motion map programmatically. Although I really like that webpage that came out on the listserv, or maybe it was on the AP Physics, about drawing motion maps. So I just need to steal that code or something. So here's the velocity versus time. So this is just a sample of what's possible, right? So based on this randomization, I basically say you have to have something at 10, something at negative 10, something at 0, and something at negative 5 and 5. But the choices you get around just those constraints are still quite interesting, right? So can students compute the area of that rectangle and not draw the other rectangle right past the axis, and then calculate the difference in displacement? Where it also gets interesting then too is they have to do the position versus time from that graph. So starting at 0, where does the object wind up? The dolphin, it's got either positive velocity or negative velocity, and can they write the model for that, and then can they compute? And kids will go to great lengths. If this time isn't great enough, they'll just like do the delta all the way out from 6 to 23. I feel sorry for those guys, but you know, okay. And then the final question is, can you tell me about average velocity versus average speed on this graph of position versus time? So because it's a standard, so I mentioned standards based earlier, for above and beyond, so in other words, this is how you can get the A in this class. This is the cart practicum, right? Two carts are going to collide. They have initial separation and initial velocities. Explain how you got to that. Draw the graph, because you can solve it graphically, so they get maybe half credit if they do the graphical solution. But also, can they draw a precise graph? Can they figure out the time and distance to collision? So that was all the tests. The answer key then looks something like this. So as I grade, I just have to basically draw for students that had a problem with the motion map. Either they got it right, or I have to draw my own or the more accurate one. So again, and we're basically showing, again, for any variation of the questions, I can show the motion map. Sorry, the position versus time and velocity versus time. And you know, we've seen all the mistakes, right? They don't make it flat. They don't make the velocities of a faster or a steeper slope, position versus time at a faster velocity, etc. So we can go over that. And then the student says, can I retake it? It's like a yes. I think what I'm trying to train them is a couple lessons that don't be satisfied with just that grade if you can do it again and do it a little better. And that's a pretty good lesson. I don't know, that's not really grit, but that's just persistence, right? Which might be part of grit. So, and then there's this one. So can negative 100, 10 times 10, and then 20, and then so that's all good. This is where this assessment's been running now for a couple of years, so it's pretty solid. And then can they do? Oh, they get mad when I make them do point protectors around their dots, and then draw the lines in the right spot. And then can they? Okay, so here's the grading philosophy. You set it up, but you miss the number. How much points do I take off? So since there's so much I can check here, yeah, when Barb has a question, let me get to that before, make sure. Let me just finish this sentence. So I have sat down with students during a test and gone over a sample test or a similar question just to show them kind of some procedural thing they need to do, and then said, now you need to do it with your numbers or with your setup. I find that so liberating because there's students that are working fine, they're doing great, but there's students that just need a little jump start even during the test, right? And it's maybe test anxiety or something. So I can differentiate way better if I know that I can just show them something during the test, which may be fair, may not be fair, but the kids who are going to get it right are going to get it right. The kids who aren't, I shouldn't make them just sit there and, doodle, right? I'd rather engage them. So that's kind of another thing. So my clientele is sometimes hard to motivate and sometimes hard to get to stick with something to the end. So when I show them it's possible. So these are the answer keys. And the answer keys, I have written answer keys that are quite involved with showing them the exact steps, and that's been fun. Let's see. Okay, so Barb says, when do you review tests with students after they have taken them? If I give them this answer key, they could post it online, right? But there's really not very many versions that have this exact question, right? This exact line. So maybe the kid, well, these are very similar. I think they have this formula, these ones, right? It has to start, decrease, constant, increase, constant, and then decrease again. So, okay, that's very similar. But there's a lot to be basically learned if you're going to talk about the interval where it's traveling the quickest. So that's the steepest, but how do you calculate that? And then to find the average speed over those versus the average velocity. So I can give them the answer key. The diligent students will see the answer key, find out where their mistake was, and then move on. the ones that need help will need help to see why the answer key is the answer key, so I can talk to them about that. But those are basically in my after school or off time. And I don't view that as them just wanting, I don't view that as grade grubbing because they're trying to understand it. I mean, in a sense it is, but the grade is the motivator. It is a chance for me to maybe go over something again or find a misconception that I had missed and they hadn't addressed either. All right, so Nick's question, I don't make students do the whole test over, but I do say you have to hand in all versions that you've ever done so I can see what your grade was and how it's been progressing. And I've had students do up to 3. I don't have really crazy students that do 3, 4, 5 retakes, but I have had students do 2 for sure. I can get a lot of customers at that level, but 3, that's really hardcore if they really, really want to know how to do it then, or they really, really want to know how to game the test, I guess. So the corrections, yeah, no, that's not your question, actually. The questions about corrections is, do I let them fix the version that they had? I think it's on a case-by-case basis. Like, if I think a student just needed to get their algebra with negative signs right, maybe I just let them fix theirs. But if I feel like, no, you need to go back from scratch and show me that you can do the whole thing. And that might be because I saw that they were getting a little bit too much help during the test from their neighbors or something. And the class size is, so here's my classroom. Camera's going to pan around here. I have 8 tables of 4 each, and I have only one class that has 1 spot free, 2 spots free in the whole class. So 30 is the top for me, and it goes down from there to maybe 22 or 26. So yeah, I'm printing out quite a few versions. Let me, so I'm kind of heavy on the Excel. I don't mean to be. I want to show you maybe a PDF one. So where did I do a PDF randomized here? There's the Unit 4 Quiz 2 randomizer. Oh crap, is this the one that's in the video? That's the sample. All right, so here's the Unit 4 Quiz 2, so quantitative force diagram. So as I click this button here that's not labeled, the mass of the rock climber changes, so the tension in the rope is going to change. The classmate's mass changes, so the table weighs something different. Sorry, the force on the table from the ground is going to be something different. And then the mass of the table, classmate's mass of the table weight. Okay, so yeah. And then sometimes I'll even say, you guys have to do 9.8, you guys have to do 10. Here's my grading. So since I can't be sure that they got the right answer, so because I'm willing to concede that they might be cheating in the sense that someone told them how to do the answer, I can really nickel and dime them if they're not being very particular about labeling their forces, very particular about hash marks, very particular. So by the time you get down to what was the answer, so the tension in the rope is 8 points, but it had to have reasoning, the direction, the magnitude. So if you just got 750, you only missed 2 points. But if you got the units and all that stuff right, so really trying to make sure that they're being very precise and concise about this. So would you like to see, let's see, 457. Yeah, so let me go back to questions here. So Barb asked about big classes. So Ariel asked, you encourage students to talk during their assessments. Here's how I look at it. I'm not prohibitive of communication with people in your group. So let me turn this on its head for a second. We say that 21st century skills is students need to learn how to collaborate, to communicate with others, and to get work done. And yet in a test, we make them shut up, sit still, put your phones away, and don't ever get any feedback on approaches they're doing. So I just think that's kind of weird, right? So what I say is, I'm not going to make you put your phone away. because they can't Google the answer to this test because the test is all unique, right? And I'm also going to not tell you to not talk to your neighbor because they're sitting in groups at these tables. It's affinity groups, so they've sat with those people for maybe a while, and I would like them to hone those skills of like how they convince that person. And we just turned a semester, and I said, you guys can move now. Anybody, if you don't like, those people are deadbeats at your table, you're sick of them, go ahead. I won't, think any less of you, but they tend to stay because, they get, now they could be in a rut, but. All right, I don't have any time for, it's 4:59. I want to be respectful of time. To see what's behind these PDF is a bunch of JavaScript, which is kind of more math than kind of really programming. But getting this form to pop numbers in here, and some of these I have the button on every page so I can actually see how the numbers are changing. So yeah, that was randomized assessments, physics style for my modeling class. Like I said, I'll be putting this PowerPoint up on a share. Did we record this at all? Bill, anybody?
Yes, it was recorded. Yes, it was.
Oh, right, because you post these. Yeah. So, and then I will be publishing my latest versions of all my assessments that I've got. So I don't really get to units 6 and 7 very much, but I think pretty solid through 1 through 5 in the physics curriculum, and then I do 9 because I like momentum as an intro or segue to forces. So okay, thank you all for coming. If there's need or if people feel like we should do this again, I suppose they'll tell Bill or Wendy, and then we'll do it again. But I'd be curious to hear how you guys might try it, and I'll get the later units up first because 1, 2, and 3 everybody's all done with that. But you won't see kind of my latest innovations on those. So I guess I have to just shut up. So Bill, turn me off. I guess I don't know.
No, I think what you said is good. If there's anyone here that's going to try some of this stuff, and you want to do another webinar, you just let Wendy know, and then we can always schedule one in the future.
Yeah. I think this has promise too for getting that boondoggle, which is we've got curriculum that doesn't, that is easily kind of posted to the internet. This could get us out of that whole problem. And it's kind of the way things are going, I think, if you look at WebAssign or Mastering Physics, those types of things. But on paper, that's the innovation. So we'll see. Let me know what you think. Criticism, welcome, please. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And I'll leave it open for a few minutes if anyone has a chat. And thank you all. Have a good night.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. Good night. It makes me save it because I randomized some of the numbers. So I just save it. It's okay.
And you share these materials with Wendy so she can post them?
Definitely, yeah. Yep. So let me get this PowerPoint up there right now.
So if you're all done on your end, I'll go ahead and close out the webinar and then convert it over, and I'll send it to Wendy so she can post it. And then any materials you have, send her way as well.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And then if you hear anything about, if there's, if anyone contacts you with more information or they're interested to learn more, we definitely could always set one of these up again.
Yeah, no problem. This is my first one, so it was okay that it was shorter. I guess I ran out. Yeah,
oh my God.
Wow.
I was feeding
That's like my teacher's nightmare.
I was feeding my